Hi there, Michelle here from McQuaid TV. We're helping you find ways to move from functioning to flourishing by putting the latest science to the real world test. Today we're very lucky to have with us David Pillay. David is a leader in the field of positive psychology, and his best-selling books and talks have inspired readers and audiences around the world. His international blockbuster, The Law of the Garbage Truck, is now translated into 12 languages, and people from more than 100 countries have taken his pledge not to accept, create, and dump emotional garbage. He's held leadership positions at Yahoo and MasterCard, and his work has been featured in media around the world. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you, Michelle. Good to be here.
Dave, just what is the law of the garbage truck?
Well, the law of the garbage truck, first and foremost, is a philosophy. It's a strategy. It's an action plan for dealing with negativity in the world, how to navigate it. Because we all know we run into bad drivers and rude waiters and curt bosses and insensitive employees and and the like, unloving relatives. And it happens a lot. So how is it that we can navigate that? The law of the garbage truck is essentially a way to do that real time, real easily, so that people can. Really what it is a shift of consciousness, so that when we identify those negative things we can't control, we are able to quickly identify them, and then what I call it is let them pass by. Let that negativity that we can't control pass by. And I'll just tell you really quickly, I can't even help but say it, that oftentimes people will say, is it really that important to understand how to navigate negativity? And the answer is, just if you look at your health alone, the research demonstrates that the way we respond to the hassles and annoyances on a daily basis is just as important as the way we respond to things as difficult as divorce and bereavement. And why? Because every day we're running into this stuff, and it's hammering away at our hearts and our happiness and hurting our physical health and our mental health. And so that's why it's just critical that we know how to navigate the negativity that we face at work or at home or on the street, wherever it is.
It sounds like a great law. So how do you apply it? How do you consciously navigate the negative? Particularly, I think, in our workplaces where you can sometimes feel like it's coming at you from every direction. What's the secret to being able to, I guess, not hold on to those things so that they stink you up?
Yeah, well, it's a great question, and that's one of the key distinctions of the law of the garbage truck, and that is, and I talk about that in the book, and that is, you hear all the time that you just have to let things go, right? That, don't hold on to that. So what we're really instructed to do is do yoga or go for a run or take a walk or do something peaceful to let go of all this negative stuff that's building up inside of us. But the first distinction of the law of the garbage truck is to learn to let things pass by. So that when you it's like if anyone's watched The Matrix, and the idea of being almost put things in slow motion, where things coming at you, you can see those things coming at you. So when you see a negative thing you can't control, a rude waiter who's just has a personality that it's not your favorite, or someone says something a little offhand that's really not important, when you see that, rather than taking it in and getting all frustrated about it, upset about it, start getting into judgment, start ruminating about it, starts making stories up about what they really meant, what you really want to do is be able to let that pass by. Because if it's really important, it's going to come back up and you can address it. But if it's not important, you want to be able to let that pass by. And in the workplace, Michelle, you and I have both worked for big companies. We run into a lot of crazy stuff in the companies, right? I love the title of your book. You just have to be able to address what's important, and those negative things that happen a lot in working department to department or working with partners or customers is being able to discern quickly, is it a negative thing that I can't control? It's not something that's important. It's a criticism that's not important, or a complaint that's not important, to be able to let that pass by. That's probably the first distinction that one needs to know. But the second thing that is that people will say, okay, I get it. All right, I don't want to let other people dump on me, but we want to make sure we're not dumping on ourselves. And where that really comes into play is we look at our past and we start getting into resentment and regret, and we get frustrated by just the thoughts that we create. So we start dumping garbage on ourselves. And then we look at the future, and then we start catastrophizing what we think might happen in the future. So now we're dumping we don't need anyone else to dump on us. we can do it ourselves. So that's the second thing, right? It's that we need to be able to understand, catch ourselves doing that. And then lastly, the other part that's just critical is to recognize when we ourselves, and sometimes it's hard to see this, but when we ourselves are dumping garbage on other people, where we are excessively criticizing, or we are excessively complaining, or we're staying in a negative mood where we don't need to, or we start rumoring or gossiping or allowing that to happen around us, that's when we recognize, you know something, I'm not a garbage truck, because the law of the garbage truck is based in a metaphor. I'm not a garbage truck. I don't accept garbage. I do not create garbage, and I don't dump garbage on other people. And when we get that, then we really start dropping the load of emotional garbage in the world. And that is a good thing.
I couldn't agree more. And I think those three distinctions are so important that, so often, particularly in workplaces, it's easy to see other people's garbage coming at us. I think we're pretty good at creating a lot of our own garbage for ourselves, but also unintentionally, it's easy to dump your garbage on other people, particularly if you feel like everybody's been dumping on you all day. So completely understand it's kind of coming at us, slowing it down, seeing it, and seeing if we can let it pass us by. What does it look like though when it passes us by? Like, what might somebody feel in that moment, or look like in that moment, or be saying to themselves in that moment?
It's a great question. One of the coolest things about applying the essence of the law of the garbage truck is that you feel like I'm getting chills actually just starting to describe it, because you feel a sense of relief, freedom, feel a sense of joy, a sense of self-congratulations where you're like, wow, I let that pass by. I mean, take a simple example. Anyone after this, when you watch this little webinar with us, this interview, well, next time you're in your car, whatever that is, and someone cuts you off driving or does something, that makes you a little upset, watch how quickly you can, because you can't control that. There's nothing you can do. You're not going to be able to follow that person, give them a lesson. You're not going to be able to call the police, get them ticketed. It's just not going to happen. So the idea then is use that as your first test, where you see that negative behavior of another driver, and if you can quickly recognize that's not something I can control, just let it pass by. Just be peaceful about it. Let them pass by. Don't judge them, because you make bad mistakes when you're driving too. So let it pass by. And when you do, and you're like, just look at it like, this is a garbage truck passing by. It's no big deal. You will feel this like, oh my gosh, just holy smokes, I don't need to feel that. And then when you start doing that more and more throughout your day, you just start getting this greater relief. And every time you do it, you also recognize something, that you're being kind to other people, because you're not being so judgmental and harsh in your judgment of saying, I caught you, you're a bad person, you did that bad driving, or you did something mean to me at work that's really what was not significant, but you made it so because you gave it so much meaning. So there is this like bodily positive sensation that you get every time you let the garbage pass you by.
I think that's a really helpful description. And I know when I first read your book, it was a real aha moment for me, going, yeah, I don't have to take all this in just because it's coming at me every time. And I think your idea of starting small, with the little things that bother us, is a great way to sort of build up your practice initially. And I certainly, started small. And for me, one of the things that helped was, as I saw that kind of slow motion of the garbage coming, was being able to take that moment of pause and breath and just think, oh, bless, like they're having a hard day, things aren't going the way they want, oh, bless, I hope it gets better for them. And I know for myself, when I found myself dumping the garbage on me, being able again to just slow that down, and instead of beating myself up the way I used to, starting to say, well, you know what, in most situations you're better than you think you are. So let's just slow down here, really think about what's happening and see what's going on, rather than letting the negativity kind of hijack my story and my attention and my energy and where it was going. And I love that you were talking about there that act of kindness, that really by being able to not dump my garbage elsewhere, by gently just, wishing people well as they pass by me with their stuff, that it was this very simple act of kindness that I could put into my day, I could put into the world around me. And it's absolutely true. So much less of that negativity started to weigh down on me and get me into that kind of, downward spiral where one negative thing starts to trigger others. Do you think, though, long term, is it healthy to let these things pass us by? Or are there times when we need to deal with the garbage that we're feeling or that's being put on us?
Yeah, this is the key point because this is why, I'm grateful to leaders like you who encourage people to read the book, not because it's a moneymaker, the meat that you want to get, and that is some people will read. Chapter 1 has the story of the law of the garbage truck. It's a story about you, Michelle, know well, of me being in New York City in a taxi cab and what almost happens in terms of an accident and how my taxi driver responds. And that story we've estimated now has been read by more than 100 million people. It's just, it's crazy, right? An internet phenomenon. Um, but people will sometimes stop there and think that, oh, we're just letting stuff pass by. We're not really dealing with the tough stuff. No, that's not it at all. What we're doing is we are letting the negative things we can't control, the things we shouldn't put our energy into, letting that stuff pass by, the annoyances, the hassles, the stuff that just, the weather, the driving of other people, people's personalities. We just let that stuff pass by so that you have the energy, and this is critical, to focus on what is important. So if something is negative in your life that you're having issues with, you've got to address it. And I encourage people, and I talk to them inside the book about if there's a problem, you have to address that problem. You can't just, paint. We used to say in college, if something was broke, it seemed like the facilities people would paint it. And that's not what we're saying. It's not ignoring the important. It's letting the negative things that you can't control pass by so you can focus on what's important. And it may be very negative. There may be a real issue that needs to be addressed. Well, you'll have the energy to address it because you're not all worn out by all the negative things that are not important. So it's a great question, and I'm really glad you asked it.
I think it's such an important thank you. I think it's such an important distinction, and I think you're so right in saying that what it does is leave us with the energy to focus on those negative things that are actually the weightier stuff that really matters, rather than having ourselves drained away by just the little everyday aggravations that are so often beyond our control and don't really matter that much in the scheme of life anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and we're both parents. Take just even the family situation. You let when something negative happens, it's really not important. If you let all these little things build up, all of a sudden it becomes a big thing. And then when something really important pops up, your energy, you're so fried based on what you've done already. And that's the same thing in the workplace. Your employees, if you let these little things bother you about Joe or Sally or whatever, then when it comes time to a real issue that pops up with a customer or another department, your energy is spent. So you come at it with oftentimes negative energy. That's the garbage truck thing. If you've accepted all this negativity and you've filled up on it, so in psychology they call it displaced aggression. Something comes at me, and I accept this negative stuff that I shouldn't. Then later on, when somebody triggers me in a new way, all of a sudden, wow, David's yelling. Why is he yelling? Because it's just not necessary.
David, thank you so much for sharing the law of the garbage truck with us today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I love being on your program.
I highly recommend David's book, The Law of the Garbage Truck, to help you take back control of your life by making more room for the good and letting go of some of the bad. Head over to his website, bewareofgarbagetrucks.com, take the pledge, and check out many of the free resources he has there to help guide you on the journey forward. Also, keep your eyes out for his new book, The 3 Promises, and think about taking the 3 Promises 3-day challenge to help you feel happier and more satisfied. Of course, if you want more tested, practical and playful ways to move from functioning to flourishing, be sure to stop by michellемcquaid.com, leave your name and email address so you can hear all our news first. Remember, you are good enough, so don't be afraid to let your light shine. Until next time, take care.